I'm Dave Hardy, and welcome again to Say What. We're sitting at the Capitol Complex today, taping in our lovely studio, and it occurred to me that the state of West Virginia has over 30,000 employees. Yet most people don't know much about state employment and what wonderful opportunities are available for prospective applicants for state jobs. So I thought, who would be the best person to come and discuss this? None other than State Personnel Director Cheryl Webb. Welcome, Cheryl.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Did I get your title right, State Personnel Director?
That's correct. That's correct.
Now, I've said to Cheryl many times that I can't think of a more difficult field than managing people. When I teach the students that I teach at West Virginia State, I say the hardest thing in the workplace is managing people.
Well, I always like to say that when you're managing people, they're your greatest asset, but they can also be your greatest liability too.
Very much.
But it definitely keeps your day interesting, that's for sure. There's never a shortage of work to do whenever you're dealing with people.
I get the impression you're not bored very often.
No,
Cheryl.
not at all, not at all. We've got lots of things to keep us, busy, and because there's so many facets of the employee life cycle, and so we get to have our hands in so much of that in the Division of Personnel. And so it is just wonderful. And what I like to do the most, I love being able to work with different agencies and help them through the issues that they might be having, or on the flip side, how do you make your environments better for people to work in? How do you get people hired? And so there's just so many different facets that make it just an enjoyable place to work. And if you really like to help people, it's a great position to be in.
Well, I've had the pleasure of working with Cheryl almost 7 years. And Cheryl, I have to ask you, you're a Marshall graduate,
Yes.
right?
Yes, that's correct.
Undergrad and master's?
Yes.
So go green,
Right,
right?
absolutely.
Go her.
Absolutely.
And you have a twin sister.
I do, who's still down in the Huntington area.
Right, and many people here in the Charleston area know your great dad, Danny Webb.
Yes.
Former member of Charleston City Council.
Yes.
And a former school teacher, if I recall.
But he was part of the Kanawha County school system. He was a community education coordinator for Kanawha County schools. So he got to do a lot with third base programs. He ran the daycare that's across the street from the Capitol for a long time. And so he got to work a lot. He always said that he had good people between him and the kids because he said that he didn't have the temperament to really work with children, but he did work in the school system for a very long time.
Now, there are a lot of folks that are looking for jobs these days.
Yes,
always.
very much so.
And there are a lot of state jobs that are vacant.
There really are. And whenever I hear people say there's not jobs that are available, and I'm saying, yes, there are. We do have jobs that are available. And that's one of the things that I have tried really hard in the time that I've been in this position, that I want to make sure that state government doesn't feel like it is a place that people can't come to work, that they don't believe that it's a club that you have to break into. I want to make sure that people know that it is a place where anybody has an opportunity to come and get a job. And a lot of times people are like, I just don't know how to do that.
That's right.
And so that's where we have really worked to try to make sure that people are aware of how to do that. We've tried to increase our social media presence. We've also worked with virtual job fairs. We've worked with in-person job fairs. And a lot of times it helps just to have that word of mouth. There will be times that I will be out at events and I'll hear somebody say, well, I can't find a job. I'm like, hey, do you care if I ask you what you're interested in? Have you considered a field in? And I'll, direct them to our website to go to the employment opportunities page where they can search so many different jobs.
I see your website on our
Yes,
monitor. Tell me about your website. What's the address of your website?
So it's easy to search for you because you can just look for personnel.wv.gov. You can just search West Virginia Division of Personnel, and it'll take you to our page, and you can go to the employment opportunities. If it's the first time that you've ever worked in state government before, there's a place there at the top for you to click on, and you can go to our government jobs page where it has a listing of every job that's available in classified service. In addition to that, we do offer the opportunity for agencies to post with us that are not in classified service. And I want to expand on that here in just a second, too, to make sure that that's clear, because that gets confusing for some people. And so on our government jobs page, when you click on that, when you click on the employment opportunities, you can see a list of all of the different jobs that are posted. And we tell people to come back regularly to look for those because they're constantly
Well,
updated.
how often should a person look?
I always say once a week.
Once a week.
Yeah, I definitely say once a week. But there's also a job interest card that you can fill out if you set up an online account. You can set up a job interest card where you can tell us what types of jobs that you're looking for, and when those become available, you can get notified.
Wow, now that's innovative.
Absolutely. It's good because, sometimes if you're looking for a job and if you've had any period of unemployment, and I went through a period of unemployment myself, which has made me even more passionate about the job that I do here, that you want to make sure that you're consistently looking for those positions to see if there's something new, something out there. Because whenever you ask people, what do you want to do? If you don't have a specific career, maybe in nursing, or you want to do teaching or something like that, sometimes people are like, I know I want to work in an office, or I know I don't want to work in an office, or I really just want to help people. If you can get that type of information from people, you can really direct them towards where they might want to go. And so I always encourage people to make sure that you get a profile set up with our NeoGov, which is on our government jobs page, so that you can do that job interest card, and that you can, once you fill out your application once, you can then submit to the jobs that you want to apply for.
So you do one big setup,
Yes.
and then you can submit.
Yes, exactly. So it makes it really nice and easy to apply for jobs and that are covered under the Division of Personnel. And that's where I want to expand on that a little bit, because the Division of Personnel has the classified service. And a lot of times people are like, I don't know what that means to have a classified service. Well, we have a merit system, which basically, in a nutshell, means that you are hired based solely on your merits. And I always say that the difference between merit system and an exempt position, it's based on what you have done before, not what you potentially could do. Because sometimes you can look at somebody's skill set and say, I really think this person could do this job. And with the merit system, it is truly based off of your education, your training, your experience. And that gives everybody an equal opportunity for a position. And so you have to apply for a job, you have to get ranked for a position, and then an agency gets a list from the Division of Personnel to select who they want to interview from a top number of people, from the top 10 or the 90th percentile, and then they call people for interviews. So whenever you've got an exempt position, somebody can say, hey, I want you in this position and I'm going to hire you for it without having to interview anybody else.
That would be an exempt job, which is not what we used to call civil service, right?
Well, civil service is the one that's classified. The
Okay.
exempt are the ones that you don't have to have any type of competition whatsoever for the position.
Okay.
That if I say that I want somebody, I can put that person in that position immediately.
Do we advertise exempt positions?
We actually do. So we do provide an option for exempt agencies to be able to post their positions with the Division of Personnel, but those are noted on our website, and it says this is not part of the classified service. So I've had people ask me, well, what does it mean when it says this is not part of classified service? And that truly is what it means. It means that you are hired and that you serve at the will and pleasure, if it's an exempt position, of the appointing authority for that agency. So we post positions for the Supreme Court of Appeals, we post positions for the State Treasurer's Office, we post positions for the Secretary of State's office. Anybody that wants to reach out to us, there is a small fee for posting those positions. We do post for agencies that don't have positions in classified service. We just make sure that it is noted so people are very clear of what they're applying for.
Are some of the executive agencies exempt?
Yes, some people do have exempt positions in the executive agencies. So, for instance, you may have somebody that is working within the Cabinet Secretary's office, and anybody that is housed within the Cabinet Secretary's office would be an exempt position if they are under the jurisdiction of the Cabinet Secretary. Now, there are some exceptions to that, but nobody needs to hear about that now because that would just cause some confusion. But if you are hired in the Cabinet Secretary's office of any of the branches, then that position is exempt. Now, there's also another area that allows somebody to be exempt as well. Agencies have classified exempt, and that's where all of this gets kind of confusing.
Right.
For people, and then they get so overwhelmed and they're like,
That's what happens.
Yeah.
Even as a manager in state government for the past 7 years, I have to call you at times and say, I don't understand what this means.
Exactly. And that's where we've really tried. We've got definitions on our website, and that's why we have our staff there. And my goal is for our staff to be a support, a resource, and to be more like a consulting agency for people to be able to help navigate the process. We've also tried to streamline things to make it not as difficult. And so when you're looking at the different types of positions, you do have positions that are classified exempt. The Division of Personnel classifies them, but they also serve at the will and pleasure of the appointing authority. And so the main positions that we hire for through the Division of Personnel are classified, which are part of the civil service system. But then we also advertise for exempt positions. And so, but that is noted, and we have tried to define that on our website. But when you're looking for a job, you don't care. You're just filling out an application.
Right.
You're hitting submit because you're just wanting to get a job at that point for the most part.
Right. Some of the nuances are lost when you need a job and you're just trying to find one.
Exactly. And that's stuff that you can learn once you get a job. We just
Right.
want to make sure that people know that they can go to our website and that they can apply for a job and that they can get hired through the state. And it's not just for certain people. Anybody can truly apply, and that they can be considered for positions within the state. And we really want people. We have several different types of positions that we are in really great need. One that surprises a lot of people, we need financial people in the state. We need accountants, we need people, we have financial reporting specialists that we need. There are just different types of accounting type positions.
People with degrees in finance, accounting, business administration, maybe.
Because there's certain agencies that you can have 12 hours of accounting classes, 24 hours of accounting classes to be able to hold the position. And so that is very important for us to look for those types, because a lot of times people will look at bigger firms. They want to work at a bigger, accounting firm. And so sometimes they don't think about what they could do in state government.
What does state government offer that maybe you don't get in the private sector?
I think it is interesting because a lot of times people try to go, oh, state government, and put it in more of a negative light. And whenever we look at it, it is definitely more of a positive thing, because there is that, one of the things that we've definitely been known for are the benefits that we offer for the state. We have great health benefits. We have a great amount of leave time that you accrue, sick and annual leave that you accrue. And so you've got these different benefits and opportunity for different types of benefits that are offered to you that make it a great place to consider to work. In addition to that, what I like to encourage people is that it is an opportunity for that work-life balance that you may not get in a larger arena. So especially with our technology positions. With technology, if you're working at a larger tech firm, most of the people I know they're on call all the time. That they're going to be working weekends, they're going to be working evenings, and for the most part, our technology group in office technology, they are working a pretty standard work day. Not to say that there's not an occasion that there's an issue that they have to be there to help take care of. But for the most part, they're working a standard work day, whether it be 8 to 4, 8:30 to 4:30, 9 to 5. They're working a standard work day. And so they've got that work-life balance. That means so much more to people than it would be having to be on call. If you want to be there and be present, for your family at certain times that you may not be able to do so.
So it's very family friendly.
Very family friendly. And it's the same case for, attorney type positions that you might have to work with all the billable hours in, agencies that are, or organizations that are, downtown maybe, that it gives that opportunity for just a different type of work. And that's where I always encourage people that say, I know the salary may not be as high because it is part of a public service, and so your salaries aren't going to be as high as they would be in the private sector, but you still, first of all, you're doing very rewarding work in many different instances. You're getting to help people. So if it appeals to you to be able to help people, if it appeals to you to have a greater work-life balance and to have some good benefits, it is a great opportunity to consider the state of West Virginia to be able to work in.
What are the other fields that are in very high demand now?
So we have other fields such as corrections officers. That is one that there is always a shortage of being able to have enough corrections officers. And so there has been a great push for recruitment in that area. And so they've done really good right now with being able to get their numbers up in Department of Homeland Security Division of Corrections. They've worked really hard to get corrections officers in their different facilities. They're located around the state, and that's one thing I like to encourage people to consider too. We have positions all around the state, not just here in Charleston. Sometimes people think, oh, it's only in Charleston or Kanawha County. No, we have positions that are statewide, and that's for the corrections positions. They are statewide. So if you're like, well, I'd like to work for the state, but I live in the Eastern Panhandle, Northern Panhandle, the southern part of the state, well, you can have an opportunity to still work for the state there too. And so that's a field that is really, we're looking to hire for. One that's also a struggle that there's been a lot of work for the recruiting aspect of that is the child protective service worker. That is a very difficult field, but you know, I was just talking to somebody last night that works in that arena and just absolutely loves the work that she does and doesn't want to do anything else.
Very meaningful work.
Very, very meaningful work. And the more that I talk to people in the agencies that do the work, I just admire so much. We have a training section in our office, and so I go and take some of our training sometime, and I got to spend some time in there. Was an adult protective service worker and in there, and just listening to the work that people get to do and how they do their work, it re-energizes me, because it helps me better work to do my job to help people do theirs. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that I think that's very important about the Division of Personnel, that we are there to support other people in doing their jobs, and to know that people are taking care of our, most vulnerable populations. And so there are so many opportunities to do that with adult protective services, child protective service workers. They're always in need to have people to work in those fields. And when people really fit in that arena, they just love it so much.
How about the health fields?
Oh, yes, there's constantly a need. Definitely the pandemic has shown us that I think we all knew that our healthcare workers were so important for us, but if the pandemic did not show us how much we can't live without our nurses, our doctors, and people get really surprised whenever I say we have healthcare facilities where we need nurses, that we need doctors, that we need people that can do certified nursing assistant work. And they're like, what? Do you all do that with the state? Yes, we do have facilities around the state as well. And so that is something that is definitely a field that if people are looking at something, now it does have the same similarities to the private sector there, because you've got 24-hour facilities. So you're having to staff around the clock. So it is not the same as working that 9-to-5 type of job in that arena. But just as like corrections having to work 24/7, but it's also an opportunity to have a very meaningful position and be able to work for state government and still get those benefits.
Informational technology.
Yes, technology, and I touch on that a little bit.
I suspect everyone listening is looking for that, right?
There was a really big push, if you looked at a lot of the private industry, there was a really big layoff this past year in the private industry and technology positions, and we worked really hard. I was working with the Department of Commerce, been using a job aggregator, JobCase, and you can go to jobcase.com and look for private and public positions. All of our positions are posted to JobCase, and what we were pulling really hard to try to pull jobs for technology, because we wanted an opportunity to say, hey, if you're not able to keep your job in the private industry, consider a job in state employment. And so some people were kind of chuckling at that we were working so hard as a collective effort to try to do that. But we said, you know what, you never know what somebody might do. They might want that security, because you also have some security in state government that you don't necessarily have in other positions in the private industry. And so that's something that we worked really hard to try to get people into the technology positions. We have many different areas. We've got our cybersecurity area over over at technology that works really hard to keep all of our systems safe, and they do all the software and all of the maintenance of everything and their help desk. And there's so many different types of positions that they need to fill. And that's a great place to be able to work. And so that's definitely another arena that if somebody wants to apply, please apply.
It's funny. People always try to make an apple to apple to public and private employment. We're better off if we just say one's an orange and one's an apple.
Absolutely. They aren't the same.
They're not the same.
And we shouldn't try to treat them the same. And I always say, even when we're looking at, when we try to increase pay grades, or we're looking at we do special hiring rates if there's an area that we're having a hard time recruiting in for a certain classification. And one of the things that we try to look at is we can't possibly be the same as the private industry, but we want to get in the same arena we're at least competitive with.
Sure.
So because that's not the funding that we have at the state. And because there's so many different programs that we're supporting, so many different things, and you're being supported with taxpayer funding, there's so many things that come into play with that. And so you can't expect that you're going to be paid the same amount in the private sector. But you do get, like I said, the security, you get these other opportunities with the benefits and things of that nature. And, it can be fulfilling. And a lot of times when you meet people in state government, you will find that they've worked there for many years. And sometimes people have left and come back. And I've talked to some people that decided they're like, I'm not coming back to state government. They pulled out their retirement. And then they've come back and wanted to buy back into it because they're like, I shouldn't have done that.
Right.
And they're like, I just never thought I was going to go back to the state. But then that's where they wanted to go back to. Mm-hmm. And, I think people always I always say this with employment, that people always believe that it's the same as true in life, that the grass is greener on the other side, no matter what.
That applies to a lot of things in life.
It applies to so many different things. And I think people always think that they're going to try to find their joy, their happiness by switching and doing something, and it's just a matter of, and there's different opportunities, even in state government. If it's not something that is appealing to you in the job that you're doing, then there's so many different other agencies that somebody can look at. And we'd rather keep you in state government as opposed to leaving state government and going to a different agency than going outside of it, because we need good people.
Right. And this is West Virginia. For those of you that younger folks maybe, that don't know where you want to go in life, it's a good time to be a young person looking for a job. Mm-hmm. I mean, there have been times where there weren't enough jobs, but now I think, would it be fair to say that state government is looking for applicants?
Oh, absolutely. We're always looking for applicants, but right now we are just as competitive as anybody else right now looking for people. And I was able to listen to a panel this past summer with our National Association of State Personnel Executives, and we were talking about generational and younger generations and what motivates younger generations. And one of the things that was being talked about was that desire for that work-life balance and not wanting to have to be beholden to be on call 24/7. And so that's one of the things that we were like, hey, we've got that in state government. There's positions that are here for you, and we would love to have you here. And so it takes all types of people to make sure that we can operate to the best of our ability. And so we want to make sure that anybody applies. And so now is absolutely the time. If somebody's getting ready to come out of school, if somebody's wanting to switch careers, definitely take an opportunity to look at the jobs that we have with the Division of Personnel and see what's out there with state government that you may have never thought. We did a video about why I work in state government that's on our website as well. And when we did the video, it was interesting to see the different areas that we have, because we've got Division of Natural Resources. If somebody wants to be outside, we've got people working with the wildlife. I had a phenomenal opportunity this past spring. I was able to go and hold these little baby bear cubs, and it was with our DNR, and to go see what they do, that we've got a state bear expert, and how they have to check in on our bear population and weigh them and make sure that they're okay and that mom's okay. And that's what our workers do. And so there's just all these great opportunities. So whether you want to work in an office, you want to work outside, there are just any area that you could think of, there's an opportunity to be able to do it in state government.
You know, you made a quick reference there to generational differences. I guess HR professionals such as yourself, this has been studied.
Yes,
And
very much so.
What's the takeaway with these generational differences?
The takeaway is that you meet people where they are, regardless of what generation you're in, and that we can't apply what we've always done to every generation, and that we work with people regardless if they're in a younger generation or if they've been experienced in the workplace for longer, that we work with people and how they operate, and to make sure that everybody's going to be happy in your workforce. But it doesn't mean that we don't change anything or that we don't look at doing something new. That's one of the things that I always get told, well, this person in my agency, they said, well, we've always done it and they want to continue to do it this way.
Right.
Well, that's not necessarily going to be acceptable. There are certain things that you do because you have to do it, whether it's set in law, rule, or policy, and that's important. But then there's other times that if you've done it just because you've always done it doesn't necessarily make it right. And so I always like to say, well, let's look at the experience and the wisdom that people offer. Let's look at new ideas that people offer and look at where everybody is coming from and see if we can come up with the best result. And I think whenever we're looking at generational studies, what gets people in trouble is when they focus on one generation and one generational alone, and they look at whether something's good or bad. And you know, we were in a class the other day, in a training class, and there was the conversation about, well, I just don't get why they don't work as hard as we do, type of thing. And one of the points that I brought up was, well, just because somebody sets their boundaries, because that's what was happening in this situation, doesn't mean they're not working as hard. Is it better because in a different generation we were taught that we just work nonstop, that's acceptable? Or is it more acceptable that we find time for ourselves to rest and come back refreshed to do a better job the next day? And there was that kind of discussion that we had, which made it really interesting just to hear people's perspective. And what came out of that discussion was, well, it's important to hear people and their perspectives and where they're coming from and what they have to offer, regardless where they are in the generation. Whatever name you have, whether from
Gen X, Gen Z, baby
boomers, yeah, regardless. Right. And, you know, we've always talked about, too, sometimes people complain about our younger generation, and there's, you know, a book that something to the effect of, you've raised them, now how do we manage them? And so, because a lot of times whenever you're raising children, like when people raise their children, they want better than what they had, or they want something different than what they had. Well, then they get the product of what they've raised, and then people are going, what's wrong with society?
Right.
Well, we've raised them because we want them to be different than what we were. We do get different than what we were, and then people act surprised.
I have a feeling, Cheryl, that the cavemen were even saying the generation behind them was not as good
yes,
as they were.
Yes,
now,
absolutely.
let me see if I can summarize. There are great opportunities in state employment.
Yes, 100%.
And applicants should go where?
Go to the Division of Personnel's website, go to our Employment Opportunities page, click on the link and look at the different jobs, set up a profile online there, and then you can be able to click and submit to any position that you would want to apply to, but you'll have to look at the minimum qualifications because you want to make sure that you qualify for the position that you're.
You just work that website like crazy.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
And there are, what, hundreds, if not thousands of state jobs open right
Yes, there are. We generally try to hire, there's generally about 3,000 positions that are hired each year, and there's always more open positions.
Thank you, Cheryl, for being here today. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely, thank you.
Keeping you informed on the Library Network, I'm Dave Hardy. Thanks for watching Say What.